have each and every one of you here today. Thank you to the media for showing up for this huge day, this monumental day in my life. And thank you to my friends, and I see my family members. And so just honored to be here and in this amazing establishment. And books. Books.
That's right.
Yes. Books, and many that should be in classrooms. And I thank the Comma bookstore, and I thank Dorian and Egypt, and we are so happy to be here in a small business. I am a member of the Small Business Development Corporation's Advisory Council, so we know I know how important small businesses are to our economy and the health of our community.
Yes, yes.
So let me just dig in. This is a pivotal moment in our country, a moment that calls for a proven fighter in Washington, D.C., someone who will prioritize the needs of the people of Michigan. This moment calls for representation who understands our needs as well as our struggles. We need a leader who knows how to get to Washington, D.C., but more importantly, knows what to do when they get there so that resources get to our communities and our people move from just barely surviving to thriving. We need a fighter who knows how to build coalitions across our diverse communities. Someone who is not afraid to stand with and for the people. Someone who doesn't waffle on the issues or have to create themselves just in time for a political season. Someone who is Michigan made and who has been made strong by Michigan. And that is who I am. And just in case I need to introduce myself to anyone, I am Dr. Pamela Pugh. And throughout my life, I have answered the call to serve, to be a fighter for the people. Whether it was working in Saginaw for 14 years, forging relationships with academia, faith and community-based leaders, government, philanthropy, and the business community to bring millions of dollars into our community to address our environmental issues. Or whether it was the work that I did right here in the resilient and with the resilient and courageous people of Flint during the worst man-made crisis our nation has ever witnessed. Or standing with Detroit children as they fought for a right to literacy. Or whether it was standing up against extremists seeking to ban books, erase our Black history, our American history, or the existence of those within the LGBT community. I have always been committed to addressing real problems that people face in their everyday lives. I've been steeped in efforts to address climate change, a public health issue, but also an opportunity for jobs. I've worked with our legislators. I've even worked with those within the GOP party. I've been elected statewide 2 times. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering. I have a Master's of Science and a Doctor of Public Health from University of Michigan in Environmental Health Sciences. I am the daughter of John and Carolyn Pugh, 2 people who made me. And through their sacrifices, made so many sacrifices for me to be here, and who always prepared me to be twice as better as an African American woman. I am Michigan made, and growing up in Saginaw, Michigan has made me strong. And while I didn't do this for political gain, it certainly has prepared me to be the next U.S. Senator of this great state. state. And so today, I am so proud to announce that after much prayer, after many conversations with people across this state, I am officially launching my campaign for U.S. Senate. It is definitely a campaign that will test my Saginaw grit and my Saginaw tenacity. It is a campaign that is by the people and for the people. This campaign is about making sure that the voices of Flint and the communities like Flint across this country, that those voices will never be ignored again. This is a campaign that is about safe schools and equitable funding and teachers that are respected and well paid. This is a campaign that is about making sure that children have access to an education that prepares them for the future that they desire. It is about economic dignity for all, where all workers are respected, earn good pay, have good quality of life, and can retire with dignity. This campaign is about quality and affordable health care for all. A campaign that is about acknowledging climate change as the existential threat that it is, and having solutions to address it. And no one will have to convince me to move away from fossil fuels and create policies that help us to move away from fossil fuels. Because I know that taking climate action is about saving the planet for future generations. It's about reducing our dependence on foreign oils. It's about addressing health disparities, while it's also about good paying jobs. This campaign is a movement. It's a movement. And I invite you to join us, or simply move out of the way. My experience and my track record speaks for itself. I have delivered results. I have put in the work. I am ready to be a champion for all Michigan families. And I believe that through hard work, determination, and unwavering commitment, we will secure victory in this campaign for the U.S. Senate here in Michigan. And I thank you And I think we'll take questions. I'll let Kevin or my team tell you how you can get more information as this campaign moves forward. Ray, you're gonna come up?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, if you guys want to do any pull aside something, just let us know. But that's it. We're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So can we ask a question? You said we can ask questions.
Okay. Well, you guys want to go at the mic? If you keep her at the mics, yeah. Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
No. What makes you more qualified than the other Democrats running for U.S. Senate?
You know me, Steve. You see
I know, but people listening to
Thank you for this opportunity for me to introduce myself to them. You know that whether it's been being elected statewide, I'm the only person right now that's on the ticket, and I believe that will step forward, that has been elected statewide, not once but twice. In 2014, when very few Democrats were elected and crossed that finish line, and then again in 2022 very handily. I have fought here in Flint, side by side with Mayor Karen Weaver, making sure that we were going to Washington, D.C., and that was under a Trump administration for the most part, bringing resources to this community. Serving on the State Board of Education and making sure that those, who have created and perpetuated culture wars calling them out, and fighting for our children to make sure that they have an equitable education, but also have an education where they have supportive learning environments regardless of their race, regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation. And so being from or moving between these diverse communities, talking to people, being able to build coalitions in communities, we're ready. And that is why I am stepping out, and we know that we will be victorious.
It's a long time before the primary, but still, you're coming in a little after some other people who've already been running, including Representative Slotkin, who has the backing of a lot of party regulars, building a big war chest. Can you compete against her in this primary?
Like I said, I'm the only candidate who was statewide elected. I have been across the state. I've been talking to the people, and they want someone who has their voice, who is prepared to be able to go to Washington, D.C., bring the resources, steer resources in their direction, who understands those needs, and like I said, the struggles of those communities, as well as how we get those resources there. I am a longtime Democrat. My campaign gets mad at me when I say I don't even remember not being a Democrat, because that's my way of not telling them how old I am. But I will say at least for 35 years, starting as a young Democrat, being the chair of the Women's Democratic Party, being the second vice chair of the National Federation of Democratic Women, going to countless DNCs, starting with my dad when they did coalition building for Jesse Jackson in Saginaw. We won in '84 and in '88 when no one thought that they would, but it was talking to the people, understanding the people. And that's right where I'll be, and we will be competitive in that way.
I'm Lisa with MERS News. Thank you. Do you have any concerns about splitting the African American vote with Representative Love or the actor if he gets involved?
I am a qualified candidate, and I will be a competitive candidate, and I am going to go out and seek every vote that I can from the people of Michigan.
What issues besides education are you concerned about?
Look at my track record. Climate change, environmental justice, as well as making sure that everyone has safe air, clean drinking water. You will see that public health has been my background, and all of those pieces that I talked about are about economic dignity, whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about addressing, taking climate action, whether we're talking about infrastructure. Those are all opportunities to bring jobs and make sure that people have access to good paying jobs.
If I may, I have one more question. Are there any Democratic groups or organizations that you're currently networking with as you've been launching this campaign?
I've been crisscrossing this state and meeting with Democrats across the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lily Gwynn, Michigan Advance. So if you were to take this all the way, you would be Michigan's first Black female senator at the U.S. level. What does that mean to you? And, you know, is that meaning something that's significant in helping make your decision to run?
Absolutely, it does. There's only been 2 African American women since the Senate has existed, and yes, that does mean a lot. I would be possibly, there are others who will be running, but possibly the only African American that would serve in the Senate, though we know that there are African American women who are very well qualified. And again, we will run a campaign that is very competitive, that is for all people, but absolutely, it would be a historical moment and a well-deserved moment, not just because of me and my bio that I just read for you, but yes, for Americans to be able to have that representation.
Thank you.
Dr. Pugh, AC Jones from the Truth Show, Nature Free Broadcast. Got a question in relation to Flint being higher in these other cities. How is the crisis in Flint, especially the water crisis, we know that is still going on after, on 10 years it's still going on. What will you do to help Flint, these other communities, Benton Harbor, Detroit even, get through these crises?
Well, first of all, making sure that people are heard. As you know, AC, when the Flint water crisis happened, there was a time that I spent a year here collecting the voices of the people. So that's first and foremost. But definitely making sure that we have a government that values the lives of all people, regardless of race, regardless of income, and making sure that we have a government that works for the people. And we showed how that happens. You know, we showed how we can work across political parties to make that work.
Being that, piggybacking on what Mr. Dooley said with the water crisis, being that the health crisis, mental health, where you fought diligently with Dr. Green with the Act 18, what is it, or can you do something as far as bringing in assistance for mental health is a serious thing in the country, not just here in the city of Flint? Is there something that you can do when you go down to try to, bring attention and help bring resources to Flint for that?
Right, working, first of all, with the delegation, working with Congressman Kildee and others. And we had a recast, resiliency in communities after trauma and stress. And that was a Department of Health and Human Services grant that we were able to bring here to Detroit. So having the opportunity to work with multiple organizations, I was there with Mayor Weaver when we worked with HUD in other departments, but making sure that those resources get to the community. But there are opportunities, and again, we have a track record. I have a track record that shows how we've received and garnered those resources, and how the federal government was able to get those resources here to the local community. And so being there in Washington, D.C., having that experience at the local level, knowing that yes, there are funding opportunities, and making sure that those funding opportunities are there, and then making sure that it's written, and then that they get to the communities of need. But having that track record, having been at this level, having been in Washington, D.C., talking to the decision makers and letting them know what works and doesn't work, and being on that other side and being able to be right there, knowing who to connect with in our communities across this state, as well as having that ear and that listening to the communities, I think will be critical and vital to that. And we have a head start there because we have been on the ground in many of these communities. I have been on the ground in many of these communities.
Dr. Pugh, Brenda Lawrence has suggested that she could run for Congress herself if another strong Black candidate didn't step up. Have you spoken to the Congresswoman about earning her support?
I've talked to the Congresswoman multiple times. Yes, I saw her on Saturday, and we continue to talk.
Cool.
Has she given you her support?
Thank you. Any questions, please come to the side. We'll have one from the side. Thank you.
Thank you.